Hey, Julie and Scott, it's Max. I wanted to share with you some ideas I have of maybe some uh, neighborhoods in the Verde Valley that might interest you. I'm sure that you would probably discover them on your own, but it might save you a little bit of time if I uh, try to lead you in that direction. So here's the satellite view. There's Flagstaff. You can see the Ponderosa pine forest going through there. Pretty huge area. That's the Mogollon Rim. It's the southern extent of the Colorado Plateau. And then you drop off of the Colorado Plateau into the Verde Valley, and that contains Sedona. So the main highway is 17. This is a really nice road. 89A is the original highway before the Interstate 17 bypassed all that. So 89A goes up this Oak Creek Canyon and through Sedona. And so Sedona is at a higher elevation than Cottonwood. Cottonwood's right at in the bottom of the valley, right on the Verde River that comes through here, and Sedona is up right up against the cliffs, and that's why the red rocks are there. You know, the cliff, the red rocky features, and all that. And then you head up to get on top of the Colorado Plateau. So Cottonwood is where I went to high school. Flagstaff is where I went to college. I spent a lot of time in this area. Uh, the so Jerome is this old mining town. Jerome is fun to visit, very touristy. Sedona is fun to visit, very touristy. And Clarkdale, Cottonwood, Cornville, and Camp Verde are down here on the river, and that's where people live. I guess there's people that live in Jerome too, but in Sedona, but average people like us. Anyway, Cottonwood's where I went to high school. So uh, Jerome there's a huge mine up there, a copper mine, and then they took the ore down to Clarkdale. That's where my parents ended up living. After I went to college, they moved to Clarkdale, and that's where the smelters were and the processing, and they refined the copper ore, and they sent the copper out this canyon and send it up to the Colorado Plateau. So this railroad that goes up this Verde River Canyon is a tourist railroad. You know, it's a scenic railroad. It's beautiful. You go up this canyon and you actually go through Perkinsville is where it turns around. So that tourist train is a big deal now in the area. So uh, if you drive in from I-17 or maybe even 89A and you get into Cottonwood, this is the this is the newer section of Cottonwood. And so this is the road that goes, 89A will take you, this yellow road will take you to Sedona, and then this other road will take you to Cornville. So right after you leave Cottonwood, heading toward Sedona, the first road is Cornville Road, and this neighborhood right here, Verde Santa Fe, is a newer, nice, very nice neighborhood, and it's very affordable. I was just talking to my sister, who's also a realtor. She's in Phoenix, but she's looking up in here. She's going to move back to the Verde Valley, and she's considering this as place to locate. It's a really nice neighborhood. So Verde Santa Fe. If you go into Cottonwood, and then there's the Home Depot and Walmart and all that is right around at this intersection. The high school that I went to is right there. Walmart Supercenter right down here. If you start heading, gosh, I think they're going to call it south, but it's not really south. It might be like 89A. But you head toward, let's see, Jerome. And so what happens is that they built this 89A. The locals call it the bypass, and so it bypasses town. But what you want to do is you want to stay on this main street. You want to go through the old part of town. So the newer part of town is where the Walmart is. The old part of town is the more interesting part. And so don't go on the. You could go on the bypass, but this area, they call it Old Town Cottonwood, and that's where a lot of the interesting restaurants and shops and the old hippie emporium is right there. Definitely, you got to see that. And they have wine tasting and some really good restaurants down there. It's a fun place to walk around, antique shops and art galleries and stuff like that. So right down in Old Town Cottonwood you're right there, pretty close to the Verde River, and I think right here before the Hippie Emporium, maybe on this, there's a information center. And I think there's a little trail that goes out of there. So anyway, then there's Dead Horse State Park. There's some really neat trails and stuff there too. So, but as you leave and you're heading toward Clarkdale from Cottonwood, there's this neighborhood, and so you come out of the bend, and there used to be West Bend Automotive right here, and there's a trail on the Greens Boulevard, this Coyote Trails golf course, and there's not a lot of super fancy stuff here in Cottonwood, Clarkdale. So, you think, oh gosh, it's a golf course community. But that is a nice neighborhood that has some good views, potentially good views, to the north. And then across from that is another neighborhood. It's this one right here. And I can't remember the name of that, but it's going to have a bunch of newer homes. It's on this bluff overlooking the river, and they all have solar panels on them. You'll see it for sure. That's another nice neighborhood. I think they're still selling some stuff in there, and I'm sure there's probably some resales in there. But newer neighborhood here. That Verde Santa Fe is a newer neighborhood. So now you're heading toward Clarkdale from Cottonwood, and there's this thing is called Tuzagut. Oh, Tuzagut National Monument, maybe that thing right there. That's an Indian ruin. Yeah, and it's a state park, maybe. Anyway, it could be a national it's a national monument, and it's Indian ruins there. So now we're heading back up to Clarkdale, and this is an older neighborhood in Clarkdale. This is one of the places where my one sister has a house there right now, part-timer. My parents, that was the last house they lived, was on this 3rd Street. And so you come into town, there's a really nice park, city park right there. And this neighborhood right here is called Mountain Gate. And so you head into this old town, Clarkdale. There's a copper museum in here someplace, or right there. The Copper Museum is pretty interesting. You don't have to spend much time there. It's probably pretty cheap, and it's maybe an hour. But this neighborhood is another area that you'll see it when you drive by. You're going to come through this and join up to the bypass at this roundabout. So you can come into that neighborhood from a couple different locations. I guess right before this, Mountain Gate is the name of the neighborhood. So that's about it. There's 4 neighborhoods that I think are going to interest you as far as they're new. This neighborhood and this neighborhood in Clarkdale, the vast majority of Clarkdale is all some pretty old stuff, like turn of the century. So they're neat, but most of them are in need of some fixing up. So it's a nice area to drive through and just see that the Main Street. Go right down Main Street. My parents at one time lived on Main Street. Also, they had two different houses, I guess, in Clarkdale. So if you head up this road, this 89A, that would be one way to get to Prescott. And you can see you're coming out of the valley, the road's nice and straight, and then you start getting up into the hills. So this is that basin and range thing I was talking about, Scott. You're in the basin, and then you come into this mountain range. And this is Jerome. It's very touristy. It's pretty cool. You got some great views of the valley and Sedona and even Flagstaff from Jerome. And then you come out, you come over this range, and then the road starts straightening out, and you come into another basin, and then you'll come into Prescott. So Prescott, the roads are nice and straight, and then you start leaving Prescott. It's in a basin, and then you go over a range, and then you drop into another basin. So basin and range topography, and that's kind of what it's all about. So anyway, there's those four neighborhoods. I would recommend that you at least drive past Tuzagoot. I think it's pretty inexpensive to get in there and just hike around. You have you get up on a little bluff and you can look around the area. Jerome is pretty fun. That Old Town Cottonwood is really fun if you want to have lunch or dinner there. That's about it. Hope you guys have a wonderful time.